colony of giants was a place of strength and order. Their city rose high above the valleys, their towers carved from stone and metal. Every giant had a role, every giant had a purpose. They lived by strict rules, and anyone who broke those rules was cast aside. In this world, a child was born. Her name was Zyra. From the beginning, she was different. She grew faster than the others, her bones stretched longer, her body grew wider. By the time she reached her first decade, she was larger than most full-grown women of her kind. Some looked at her with awe, others with fear. The elders whispered among themselves, saying she was too big, too strange, too unnatural. Zyra tried to live as the others lived. She trained, she worked, she obeyed, but her body betrayed her. The tasks that seemed easy for others became clumsy for her. When she joined the circle of young women for testing, the healers studied her and gave their cruel judgment. They said her body was too heavy to carry new life. They said her frame was wrong, her insides twisted. She would never be a mother. The words cut her heart, for in her colony a woman's worth was tied to the future of the tribe. To bring new life was sacred. To fail in this was to be useless. The elders gathered, their voices booming. They declared she was a burden, a shadow. They cast her out. The day she left was filled with silence. No one spoke. No one dared to defend her. Zyra walked alone through the great gates. The cold wind of the valley touched her skin. Behind her, the doors closed with a thunder that echoed in her chest. She was only 19 years by human measure, yet she was alone in a world that did not want her. She wandered across the wastelands, her large feet sinking into sand and stone. She searched for food, hunted small creatures, drank from rivers. At night she slept under the stars, though her body was strong. Her spirit was wounded. She remembered the looks of the others, the whispers, the laughter, and she asked herself, why was I made this way? Why do I live when my people reject me? Time passed. The seasons changed. Her loneliness grew heavier. In the silence, she began to speak to herself, sometimes to the wind, sometimes to the stars. She told stories that no one would hear. She dreamed of a child she would never have. She imagined holding tiny fingers in her hand. She imagined teaching someone to walk. But each morning she woke with empty arms, yet there was something inside her, a fire that refused to die. She did not give up. She kept moving. She kept searching. The world was cruel, but she endured. She fought beasts, survived storms, crossed deserts. Her body carried her where others would have fallen. Still, she wondered if her journey had meaning. Unknown to her, she was not alone. Far above in the night sky, machines floated, watching, measuring, recording. In one of those machines was a human colony, small and struggling. They searched for resources, for answers, for life, and one human in particular would soon hear of her. But in this moment, Zyra knew only her exile. She sat by a river, her reflection trembling in the water. She touched her face, her eyes filled with sadness. She whispered, I am too big, too broken. No one will remember me. And yet, the world around her did remember. The wind carried her voice across the plains. The stars watched her, and fate began to move. The night grew darker, shadows stretched long, strange sounds echoed in the distance. Zyra stood tall, her size both her curse and her shield. She looked into the darkness, her heart beating heavy. Something was out there, something that would change her life forever. The outcast was no longer just a woman. She was the beginning of a story that would shake two species, a story that started with pain but would lead to something greater, something no one could predict. And so her journey began, not as part of her people, but as the lone giant walking into the unknown. Far away from Zyra's lonely path, across the stars and down upon a struggling world, the humans lived in fear and hope. Their colony was small, built from broken ships and machines that no longer flew. The land was rough, the soil weak, the air thin. Every day was a fight to survive. The human colony had come here many years ago, a desperate group fleeing war among the stars. They had dreamed of building a new home, a place for children to grow, but the dream had faded. Their numbers shrank each year. Food grew less, water ran dry, sickness spread. The people whispered that their future was ending. Commander Arik stood at the edge of the colony wall, a tall fence of steel and wood that creaked with the wind. He looked out over the barren fields, his eyes sharp and thoughtful. He was not old, but the burden on his shoulders had aged him. Arik had seen too many graves, too many empty homes, and too many mothers cry for the children they could not save. Unlike many of his people, Arik did not give in to despair. His heart still carried fire. He studied old maps, old records. He searched the mountains, the deserts, the skies, always looking for an answer, for something that might save them. The others said he was chasing ghosts, wasting time, but he did not stop. The colony council was tired of him. They wanted him to obey, to stay inside the walls and keep the peace. But Arik could not ignore the call of the unknown. One night, as he sat in the dim light of the command tent, He listened to the traders who had returned from the far side of the valley. They spoke of a giant, a massive figure that walked alone across the lands. Some said she was a monster, others said she was a spirit. The stories grew wild, but one detail stayed the same. She was female, enormous, and dangerous. The council laughed at the rumor, saying it was nothing but fear and superstition. But Ari felt something stir inside him, a strange pull, as if fate had whispered in his ear. Why would a giant wander alone, he wondered? Why had she not destroyed the humans she passed? Why did the traders speak of sadness in her eyes? For days, Arik could not rest. He remembered the stories of old Earth, tales of giants in myth and legend. But this was no story, this was real, and perhaps, just perhaps, she was not a threat. Perhaps she was a key. The colony had reached a breaking point. The food stores were almost empty. The last harvest had failed. The children grew thinner, weaker. Even the soldiers were losing strength. If nothing changed, they would not last another year. Arik walked through the settlement, past the rows of metal shelters, past the tired faces, the eyes that no longer believed. He clenched his fists. He swore to himself he would not let his people die without trying everything, even if it meant chasing a shadow across the wasteland. That night he prepared alone. He packed dried meat, water flasks, a rifle, and a small device to record his journey. He left a note on his desk for the council. Simple words: "Do not wait for me. I must see the truth." Then he slipped out beyond the gates, under the cover of stars. The land beyond the colony was dangerous, full of predators and storms, but Arik moved with purpose, each step heavy but steady. The thought of the giant filled his mind. He imagined what she might be: savage beast, wandering exile, or something in between. He wondered if she could even speak, if she could understand. Days passed. He followed tracks larger than any human foot. He saw broken trees, rivers where the ground shook as if something massive had crossed. His heart raced. He knew he was close, and still he did not turn back. The sky burned with crimson light as the sun set on the fourth day. Arik climbed a ridge of stone, and in the distance he saw her. The figure was enormous, even from far away. Her shadow stretched long against the fading light. She moved slowly, her head bowed, her arms heavy. She looked less like a monster and more like a sorrowful queen without a throne. Arik stood in silence, the wind whipping his cloak, his breath caught in his throat. He had found her, the outcast giant. And though fear should have filled him, it did not. Instead, he felt a strange calm, as if this was the moment he had been chasing all his life. He whispered to himself, "She is not a monster. She is alone." The colony behind him was dying, their hope fading, but before him stood something new, something unknown, and deep inside his heart, Arik believed that this meeting, this chance, could change everything. He tightened his grip on his pack, his eyes fixed on the giant woman, and he took his first step toward her, unaware that his choice would begin a story that would bind human and giant forever. The night air was cold, the wind sharp, but Arik's heart was burning with something he could not name. He had found her, the outcast giant, the one the traders had whispered about, the one who walked alone in the wastelands. From the ridge he watched her. Zyra moved slowly, her head low, her long hair blowing like a dark river behind her. She did not look like a beast. She did not roar or destroy. Instead, she looked tired, as if each step carried the weight of the world. Arik's instincts told him to wait, to watch, but another voice inside urged him forward. If he turned back now, he would only return to a dying colony with nothing but empty hands. So he steadied his breath, climbed down the rocky slope, and began to walk toward her. Zyra felt the ground tremble. Her sharp ears caught the faint sound of boots on stone. She turned, her eyes glowing faintly in the twilight, and she saw him, so small, so fragile, a human, standing alone with nothing between them but dust and silence. Her first thought was danger. Humans feared her kind. Some had hunted giants before. Her body tensed. Her massive hand reached for the bone blade she carried across her back, but she stopped. The man was not aiming a weapon. He was not shouting. He was only walking forward, slowly, carefully. Arik raised his hands to show peace, his voice steady, though his heart raced. "I am not here to harm you," he called. The sound carried weakly against the wind. "I only want to talk." Zyra tilted her head. The words were strange but familiar. She had learned human tongue from overhearing traders long ago. Still, no human had ever dared speak to her directly. No human had looked at her without hate or fear. She narrowed her eyes, her voice deep and heavy. "Why?" she asked. "Why do you come near me?" Arik swallowed hard. Her voice shook his bones, but he did not run. "Because I think you are not what they say," he answered. "They call you a monster, but I see something else." For a long moment, silence hung between them. Zyra's chest rose and fell like thunder. She studied him, this tiny creature, his eyes sharp, not weak like most. There was no laughter, no cruelty, only courage. But her memory stabbed her heart. She remembered the elders, the harsh words, the rejection. She remembered being told she could never be a mother, that she was broken, useless. She looked down at him and said, "You do not know me. I am nothing." Auric shook his head, his voice firm now. "You are not nothing. You are alive. And if you live, then you matter." Zyra's breath caught. No one had ever spoken to her this way, not even among her own kind. She felt her hands tremble. The blade at her back grew heavy. She wanted to turn and leave, but something in his words tied her to the ground. Auric slowly took his pack from his shoulder. He pulled. Let out a flask of water, then a small piece of dried bread. He placed them on the ground between them. He stepped back, raising his hands again. "Take it," he said. "It is yours." Zyra frowned, confused. She had stolen food from traders before, but never had anyone offered it freely. She crouched low, her shadow covering him like a mountain. She reached out, her fingers larger than his head. She picked up the bread carefully, brought it to her lips, and ate. The taste was simple, but her throat ached as she swallowed, not from hunger, but from the strange warmth rising in her chest. She looked at him again, and for the first time she did not see prey. She saw something else, something she could not yet name. Auric exhaled slowly, relief washing over him. The first step had been made, not in war, but in trust. He sat down on the ground, showing no fear. "My name is Auric," he said. "What is yours?" Zyra hesitated. The name felt heavy on her tongue. It had been so long since she spoke it to anyone. Finally she answered. "Zyra," her voice low, like a storm breaking far away. Auric smiled faintly, though he was still trembling inside. "Zyra," he repeated. "Thank you for not killing me." To her surprise, a small sound escaped her lips, not quite laughter, but close. The walls around her heart cracked just a little. The night stretched on, the stars glowing bright above. Two figures sat in the wasteland, one giant, one human, strangers by blood, but joined by a fragile thread of trust. Zyra did not know why she allowed him to stay. She did not know why she answered his questions, why she listened to his voice. But something deep inside whispered that this moment was important, that this human was not like the rest. Auric did not know where this path would lead. He did not know if his colony would survive, or if Zyra would even accept him. But he knew one thing. He had found a spark in the dark, a chance, and he would not let it fade. And so their first meeting ended not with blood, not with fear, but with silence, heavy and alive, the silence of two worlds on the edge of change. The nights grew longer, the days grew colder, yet Auric did not leave. He stayed close to Zyra, never too near to make her feel threatened, never too far to lose her trust. He followed her across valleys, across broken lands, learning her steps, her silence, her sorrow. At first, Zyra could not understand him. Why did this human remain? Why did he share food when he had so little? Why did he speak to her when his voice was like the chirp of a bird compared to her thunder? She told herself she would leave him behind, yet each time she looked back, he was still there, steady, unshaken. Slowly, something began to change. One evening, under the red glow of a fading sun, Zyra sat by a fire she had built from fallen trees. Auric approached and placed his small pack near the flames. He spoke gently, asking her about the stars, asking what she saw when she looked at the sky. Zyra hesitated, her voice rough. "The stars are reminders," she said. "They watched when my people cast me out. They watched when I walked alone." Auric listened, not interrupting, his eyes fixed on her face. He could see the pain there, the weight of years of rejection. He nodded and whispered, "They also watch us now, maybe to see what we will do next." For the first time, Zyra felt her chest tighten. Not from anger, not from shame, but from something softer, something she could not name. She turned away, afraid to show the shimmer in her eyes. Days passed, and Zyra began to speak more, not much, but enough. She told him pieces of her story, how the healers declared her unfit, how the elders stripped her of worth, how her own sisters turned their faces from her. Auric listened to every word, his jaw tight with anger, his heart heavy with sorrow for her. "You are not broken," he said one night, his voice firm as steel. "They were blind, they were cruel, but you are still alive, and that means there is more for you than they could see." Zyra stared at him, her massive hands curling into fists, her voice shaking. "You do not understand. I was meant to give life. That is our highest honor. But they said my body is wrong. They said I cannot. I will never hold a child." The words cracked like stone in the fire. The silence that followed was heavier than the mountains. Auric did not look away. His eyes burned with determination. Then they were wrong, he said. I do not believe destiny is decided by their voices. Maybe they feared what you could truly be. Zyra's breath caught. She felt something rise inside her, a spark of defiance she had buried long ago, but fear pulled her back. She shook her head, her voice bitter. You speak like a dreamer, human. Dreams do not change truth. Auric leaned forward, his voice soft now. Sometimes dreams are the only thing that change truth. His words lingered, long after the fire burned low, long after the stars wheeled across the sky. Zyra lay awake, staring into the dark, wondering why this human's voice echoed louder than the voices of her own people. As the days turned into weeks, their bond grew, not of blood, not of power, but of small moments. Auric showing her how to filter water with sand and cloth, Zyra teaching him how to listen to the earth to know when storms would rise. Auric laughing softly when she tried human bread for the first time. Zyra almost smiling when he fell asleep mid-sentence, his head nodding like a child's. Still, shadows remained. The humans of the colony would not accept her. She knew this. They would see her as a monster, a danger, a threat. One evening she warned him, her voice heavy. Your people will never allow me near. They will turn against you if you defend me. Auric did not flinch. He looked up at her towering form, his eyes steady. Then let them. I will not turn against you. Her heart pounded, louder than any storm. He wanted to believe him, but belief was dangerous. Belief had broken her before. Yet every time he stood before her without fear, every time he spoke to her as if she mattered, the cracks in her walls widened. One night, as the fire burned low, Auric dared to ask, Zyra, what do you want most? The question froze her. No one had ever asked. No one had cared. Her lips trembled, her voice barely a whisper. I want to be a mother. The words hung in the night like a fragile flame. Auric's eyes softened. He did not laugh. He did not turn away. He only nodded. Then maybe you will, he said simply, as if the impossible could be true. Zyra felt her chest ache, her eyes wet. She turned from him, hiding her face, yet deep inside, a seed of hope was planted. Small, trembling, but alive. The bond between them was no longer hidden. It was growing, silent and strong, like roots beneath the earth. Neither of them could deny it. Neither of them could escape it. And though the world around them was filled with danger and fear, together they carried something rare, something powerful, something that might change everything. The bond between Auric and Zyra grew stronger with each passing day. Yet far away in the human colony, whispers had begun to spread. The traders who once saw the giant wandering now told new stories. They said a soldier had been seen walking beside her, a man who should have known better. The council heard these rumors, and anger stirred like a storm. Inside the council hall, voices rose. This commander is reckless, one leader said. He brings danger to our gates, another spat. Giants are monsters. They destroy, they kill. He cannot be trusted if he walks with one. The decision was swift. They sent scouts, soldiers armed with rifles and fear. Their orders clear. Find the commander, confirm the truth. And if the giant is real, eliminate the threat. Meanwhile, Auric and Zyra moved through the wastelands, unaware of how close danger was. Zyra felt uneasy, her instincts sharp. One evening she told Auric, her voice deep with warning, Your people will not accept this. They will come for you, for me. Auric shook his head, his jaw set. Then let them come. I will not let them harm you. But his heart was heavy. He knew she was right. Humans feared what they did not understand. Fear made them cruel. Fear made them blind. The scouts found them at dawn, their rifles aimed, their voices loud. Step away, commander, they shouted. You will not protect this beast. Zyra rose to her full height, towering above them like a mountain of flesh and bone. Her eyes burned, her hands tightened on the blade she carried. Auric leapt between them, his arms wide. No, he cried. She is not our enemy. She has harmed no one. The soldiers hesitated, their fingers shaking on the triggers, but fear drove them. One fired a warning shot. The sound cracked through the air. Zyra roared, the earth trembling beneath her feet. The soldiers staggered back, but still they aimed. Auric turned, his voice desperate. Zyra, please do not fight. If you strike them, they will never stop hunting you. Her breath was fire, her anger a storm, yet when she looked at him, his small figure standing before her, shielding her with nothing but his own body, she felt her fury break. Slowly she lowered her blade, her voice thundered, Leave, before I change my mind. The soldiers pulled back, but not in defeat. Their leader glared at Auric, his words sharp. You are finished, commander, the council will hear of this. Then they vanished into the dust, leaving behind silence and fear. Zyra's chest heaved, her eyes blazing. They will not stop, she growled. They will hunt me until I am dead, and you will suffer for standing with me. Auric stepped closer, his hand brushing the rough skin of her arm. "Let them hunt," he whispered. "I will not leave you." Her heart ached, her mind torn. Never before had anyone chosen her over their own people. Never before had anyone stood before death just to protect her. She looked down at him and felt the truth she had tried to deny. He was no longer just a companion. He was part of her, but the challenge had only begun. The council called Auric a traitor. They stripped him of his command. They sent soldiers to bring him back in chains. The people of the colony whispered his name in anger. Mothers held their children close. Fathers cursed him, saying he had betrayed them for a monster. Auric knew he could never return, not unless he turned against Zyra, but his choice was made, his path clear. He would rather live in exile beside her than rule a dying colony without her. Zyra struggled with this, her voice heavy with guilt. "I am the reason you have lost everything. Your people, your honor, your future." Auric shook his head, his voice steady. "No, Zyra, you are the reason I still have something worth fighting for." Those words struck deep. Her chest burned, her eyes filled. She turned away, unable to let him see. Yet in her heart she knew this bond was no longer fragile. It was steel, forged in fire and loss, unbreakable. But danger pressed closer. The soldiers built traps. They followed tracks. They watched the skies. And Zyra knew the day would come when she would have to choose, fight and prove their fears true, or flee and lose the only one who had ever seen her as more than nothing. One night, as the moon rose pale over the barren land, Zyra told Auric of her plan. "I will leave. I will go far, where they cannot find me. You must return. You must save yourself." Auric's voice cracked like thunder. "No, do not ask me to abandon you. I cannot. I will not." Her hand shook as she touched the ground beside him, her voice breaking. "I cannot watch you fall because of me." He stepped closer, his hand on her massive finger, his voice fierce. "Then let me fall, but not without you." The fire between them burned brighter than fear, brighter than shame, brighter than the voices of those who condemned them. And though the world rose against them, though soldiers marched and whispers spread, they stood together, two outcasts bound by something greater than blood, greater than law. The challenge was no longer just survival. It was love against fear, hope against despair, and neither of them would back down. The days that followed were heavy with silence. Auric and Zyra moved through the wastelands together, hunted by soldiers, rejected by the colony, haunted by the past. Yet something inside both of them refused to break. Zyra carried guilt like a chain, her voice low when she spoke. "I have taken everything from you, your people, your place, your honor." But Auric shook his head each time, his voice steady. "You have given me more than they ever could. You have given me purpose." Still, her greatest wound remained untouched, the belief that she was broken, the cruel words of the healers echoing in her mind, "Too big, too heavy, cannot reproduce." Each night when she closed her eyes, she saw their faces, their judgment, and she felt the emptiness inside her. Auric saw this pain, and though he did not fully understand her body, he was determined to find the truth. One evening, as they sheltered in a cave carved by ancient rivers, he placed his small scanner on the ground, a device built from scraps of old ship technology, he told her. "Let me try, maybe we can know more." Zyra frowned, doubt heavy in her voice. "Your small machine cannot change what is decided," but she allowed it. She was too tired to resist, too tired to fight the spark of hope that still lived. The scanner hummed, blue light brushing against her skin. Auric studied the read. Ings with sharp eyes. The data flickered. Strange patterns appeared. His heart raced. His hands shook. "Zyra," he whispered, "this is not what they told you." Her chest tightened, fear rising. "What do you see?" Auric looked up at her, his voice trembling with awe. "You are not broken. Your body is different, yes, larger, stronger, but it carries something unique. You were never unable, you were only misunderstood." Her breath caught, her mind spinning. "Different? How?" she demanded. Auric pointed to the glowing lines on the scanner. "Your body holds more than theirs. Your frame is built not to fail but to endure. You can bear life, but in a way they could not imagine. Maybe they cast you out because they feared what they did not understand." Zyra's hands shook, her voice breaking. "You mean I could still be a mother?" Auric nodded, his eyes bright. "Yes, not broken, not cursed, only new, only rare." Tears welled in her eyes, heavy drops that fell like rain onto the cave floor. She covered her face with her hands, her voice trembling like thunder. "All these years I carried their lies. All these years I believed I was nothing." Auric stepped closer, his hand resting on her giant finger, his voice soft. You are not nothing. You are the future, and maybe you are the hope my people need." The words cut through her sorrow, hope rising where despair had lived. For the first time, she allowed herself to imagine again, to dream of holding life, of bringing something new into the world. But the miracle was not only her secret. Auric knew what it could mean. The human colony was dying, their birth rates falling, their future fading. Zyra's strength, her difference, could be the answer. If she could bear life, if she could carry something between them, it could save both species. Yet fear pressed close. The soldiers would never understand. The council would never allow it. They would call it unnatural, forbidden. They would try to destroy it before it began. Zyra knew this, her voice heavy with warning. "If they learn, they will kill me. And you." Auric met her eyes, his voice firm. "Then we keep it safe. We protect it, no matter the cost." The bond between them deepened, no longer just trust, no longer just companionship. It was a fire that would not die. They were outcasts, but together they carried something greater than exile. They carried possibility. One night, under the silver glow of the moon, Zyra placed her massive hand gently over Auric's small form, her voice low, almost fragile. "You gave me back what they stole from me. You gave me back the dream." Auric pressed his hand to her skin, his voice soft. "You gave me a reason to fight, Zyra. Together we can change everything." The miracle was not yet complete, but it had begun. A spark of life where there had once been only emptiness. A seed of hope planted in barren soil. And though the world around them was filled with enemies, though fear hunted them like wolves in the dark, Zyra no longer felt cursed, no longer felt empty. For the first time she felt whole. The outcast had become something more. Not just a survivor, not just a wanderer, but a bearer of the future. And Auric, the human who had defied his people, was no longer alone in his fight. Together they carried the weight of two worlds. Together they carried the miracle. The winds of the wasteland carried the sound of marching boots. The colony had sent more soldiers, armed and ready, their hearts filled with fear, their minds filled with orders. They believed they were protecting their future, but in truth, they were blind to the miracle that was already beginning. Zyra and Auric hid deep in the mountains, the cave they called shelter was small for her size, yet safe. Here the fire glowed, here hope lived. Auric worked each day with his small machines, recording signs, watching Zyra closely. He saw what she could not deny any longer. Life was growing inside her. At first, Zyra feared it. Her hands shook whenever she placed them on her stomach. Her voice trembled. What if they were right? What if I fail? But Auric never wavered, his eyes steady. "You will not fail, Zyra. You were made for this, not to be broken, but to bring something new." The weeks turned into months. The miracle became real. Zyra felt it move, felt it breathe. Her heart filled with a warmth she had never known. She no longer saw herself as useless, no longer heard only the cruel voices of the elders. Instead, she heard the tiny rhythm inside her, the proof that she was more than their judgment. But danger pressed closer. Scouts reported her location. The council declared her child an abomination. They sent orders to kill her before the birth, to end what they called a crime against nature. One night, Auric stood at the cave entrance, watching the stars, his face hard, his voice low. "They are coming, Zyra. They will not stop, but we will not let them take this from us." Zyra rose, her body heavy yet strong, her eyes burning with fire. "I will not run anymore. I will not hide. If they want to destroy me, they will have to face me as I am." The soldiers came at dawn, their rifles glinting in the pale light. They surrounded the mountain path, their leader shouted, "Give up the giant, give up the traitor, or be destroyed." Auric stepped forward, his voice loud. "You call her a monster, but she carries the only hope for our future. If you kill her, you kill us all." The soldiers hesitated, whispers rising. Some looked uncertain, others gripped their weapons tighter. The leader sneered, "Hope cannot come from a beast." Then Zyra stepped into the light, towering above them. Her voice thundered across the valley. "I was cast out. I was called broken. I was told I would never be a mother. But look at me now. Life grows within me. Not a curse, not a crime, but a gift." Her words shook the air. The soldiers lowered their weapons slightly, doubt flashing in their eyes. They had expected a savage beast, not a mother speaking with fire in her heart. Auric raised his voice again. "We are dying. Our children grow weaker each year, but she can save us. She is not our enemy. She is our future." The silence that followed was heavy. The leader raised his rifle, ready to fire, but one soldier lowered his weapon, then another. Soon half the line faltered, their faces filled with confusion and awe. Zyra placed her hand gently on her stomach, her eyes fierce. You can call me monster, you can call me outcast, but you cannot deny the truth. I am a mother, and no one will take this from me." The leader growled, furious at their hesitation. He aimed at her, but before he could shoot, Arik stepped in front of her, his voice sharp as steel. "Then you must kill me first." Time froze. The soldiers stared, the leader's hand shook, and in that moment, the choice became clear. To fire would mean killing not just a man, not just a giant, but the very spark of survival their people needed. Slowly, one by one, the soldiers lowered their weapons. The leader cursed and turned away, powerless. The order to kill had broken against something stronger than fear, against the truth of life itself. The months passed and the day finally came. Zyra's cries echoed through the cave. Her body shook with pain and power. Arik stood beside her, his hands trembling but steady. And at last, the miracle was born. A child unlike any other, small yet strong, with eyes that carried both human fire and giant depth. A bridge bet. Weaned two species, a living answer to despair, Zyra held the child in her arms, tears streaming down her face, her voice soft as the wind. "I am a mother." Arik knelt beside her, his hand on the child's tiny head, his voice breaking with emotion. "You are not just a mother, Zyra. You are the future. You are the hope they tried to kill, and you proved them all wrong." The news spread, whispers turned to awe, fear turned to wonder. The colony could no longer deny what had happened. The outcast had become a symbol, the traitor had become a savior, and together they had changed the fate of two worlds. Zyra, once cast out as broken, now stood as the first of a new beginning. Her body no longer a curse, but a vessel of life. Her name no longer spoken with shame, but with reverence. And so the story ended where it had once begun, with a woman who had been told she was nothing, who rose to become everything. The outcast had become the mother, and through her, the stars themselves seemed to shine brighter.